You guys can call me AOC. Mike Pence can't call me AOC, but you guys can.
All right.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna get imposter.
Is there a way to mute yourself?
Yes, on this. Crack snack.
I didn't even know I recorded myself.
Ma'am?
I can't kill Pokey. She's so nice.
Are you safe, ma'am?
Okay, I think I have to do it.
AOC's bold outreach to gamers during the pandemic comes as gaming interest skyrockets amongst those seeking COVID-safe ways to connect. Millions have watched her live stream of the popular game of manipulation called Among Us. Some see it as a political metaphor for our times. Still, the Congresswoman has used this game to raise $200,000 for COVID relief. She's doing more than Mitch McConnell, a strong sign that gaming is not just for 27-year-old guys locked in their mom's basements anymore. Joining me now, Noah Smith, contributing writer for The Launcher, the Washington Post home for video games and esports, and Aaron Ashley Simon, esports and gaming broadcaster. Thank you so much to the both of you. I'm going to start with you, Noah. We have video here of Ilhan Omar and AOC playing games together. I want to get your comments on that on the other side about how this is sort of affecting how both politics and gaming come together.
I think it's Ilhan. Because the doors were locked.
I think it's Alex. I was
no.
say.
Because the doors, I was trying.
All the doors and then opened one of them.
Oh, God, I'm voting Ilhan, but I don't know.
Make sure you vote.
Oh, no.
I think it was Ilhan. The way she was like, where were you?
We're about to find out if I threw or not.
Oh my God!
You know, I remember back in the days of like G4 TV, where that was the only time you got to see this sort of action going on. What do you think, Noah, is the motivation behind these politicians sharing their gaming experiences? Obviously, they are gamers, but now they're using it as a way to communicate with people. Is it effective, or is it just sort of a natural outgrowth of being trapped in a pandemic?
Absolutely. First of all, Jason, thank you for having me on the program. I think the numbers speak for themselves. You're talking about 5 million people viewed AOC's first video before before the election, and having that kind of reach. And also, it's unfiltered reach. There's no medium. She can talk right to her fans. There's no middle person in between. And the results sort of speak for themselves. You looked, there was a tough study that showed as much as a 14% increase in voters 18 to 29. And so I think that looking at just the sheer power of this medium, and you know, as everyone knows, AOC has a natural affinity towards it. It comes across and likely is authentic. I mean, she's a gamer, and so I think seeing the growth and the cost, it's free essentially. She said to buy a webcam, and so just having that ability to speak to folks is somewhat unparalleled right now, especially younger people.
And so, Aaron, you know, one of the things that I've noticed is when we didn't know if COVID was going to end all sports, right? You saw an explosion in esports. I saw NBA players playing basketball. You've got this guy, Chase Perisco, who's moved from iNASCAR to actually having his own NASCAR. On Friday on TBS, they've got like the esports championship. Do you think people are now saying, you know what? I can watch esports as much as I watch live human sports, or do you think they're parallel, or do you think esports may actually be growing at a rate faster than our desire to watch real people compete?
I think that esports has been growing in terms of mainstream's attention towards it, but I think that during this time it's expedited a lot quicker because a lot of these mainstream media companies, they didn't have traditional sports to kind of fill those slots. So esports, it was really towards the time where you see like League of Legends and you have the Worlds and everything that's going on over there. And so these mainstream media companies had to fill the time slot. And then they realized, I think that it helped to show that broadcast for esports and esports as a whole isn't just people sitting at a desk and playing games. You know, there's a lot more to it. So I think that there was an increased newfound respect, as well as we're starting to see kind of like the convergence of pop culture, the convergence of non-endemic people, non-endemic brands that are entering into the esports space. So it is growing very, very fast. And I think that during this time, a lot of people had more opportunities to just sit down and watch it. And, you know, a lot of people were amazed to see just how much work goes up behind the scenes when it comes to competitive gaming.
Right, and Aaron, and I think that's what's key also is that as people are home together. Look, I remember a couple of years ago, I would sit around and I will watch my students play Five Nights at Freddy's. Now I watch other things on YouTube and stream. There is a visual community experience that we're seeing with gaming now. Are you seeing when it comes to esports that people who traditionally didn't care about video games at all are becoming interested because of esports, or do you think it's just sort of everybody is moving to it because, again, we're sheltering in place?
I think that people are interested for various different reasons. I mean, one, there's a lot of conversation. It's the glitz and the glam of esports, right? And they're seeing these high-end, well-produced, competitive scenes, or they see that these pro players that are receiving, some of them are receiving 100,000, some are thousands, some are millions, and so people are really focusing in. I think the one thing with esports that we're kind of in the process of seeing is this generational fandom. The same thing that we see in traditional sports, where you have like the grandfather who's a fan of an NFL team, the dad, the siblings, and everything. We're starting to see that kind of progression of generational fandom within esports. So you have a bunch of youth and kids and people around my age who are watching the scene and are talking to people about it, and it's grabbing people's attention. And because with the quarantine previously, with everyone being at home, like I said, they had more time to take a look and check it out. But I think that the difficulty that we're seeing within esports right now is that we're having a lot of eyes, a lot of attention, but it's like, how do we retain those people who don't feel like gamers or don't feel like hardcore fans of esports? Right. And so now within esports, we're seeing not only kind of like the increased attention and focus, but also the community is figuring out how can we create some of this casual content and casual entryway so we can increase the generational fandom and bring more people into the scene.
I say this as somebody who has had a PS4 that I got for my birthday in March that is still like sitting on the floor. I haven't even opened it up. I have a retro gaming system where I play old school stuff like, Battletoads and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which goes to my question to you, Noah. There are concerns, right? Just like with other issues at home, people getting a lack of exercise, people not getting out, people dealing with depression. Of course, as more and more people are playing games at home, there are psychologists and organizations that have said, hey, maybe this is turning into an addiction. Maybe people being at home and playing games all day can lead them not to AOC and Ilhan Omar, but to crazy white nationalist groups like, individuals who have been trying to recruit people to engage in violence. How do we make sure that this rise in esports and e-gaming and gaming at home keeps people healthy and engaged and not going down a rabbit hole of danger and violence and isolation?
I think it's a great question, and it unfortunately doesn't have an easy answer. What I can say is that there are countless examples that I've had and spoken to sources about where they've met somebody online, and that's become a close personal friend to them. One example actually that comes to mind is, unfortunately, a young person had passed away. Someone he had met online, he'd never met in person, came to his funeral. There's also examples of people who've never met coming to each other's weddings, being the best man at their wedding. And so certainly it's possible to make these meaningful connections online. Playing video games, it's competitive, you're on the same team, shared sense of purpose. And so on the one hand, it's definitely possible, and very often is the case, that people form healthy relationships. They are communicating. It's just over a video game instead of over Skype or Zoom or something like that. On the other hand, just like anything else, it's balance. I mean, if someone's playing video game 20 hours a day or something like that, it's probably good for them to get outside. Someone I think about is Tifu, Turner Tenny, one of the most watched people on Twitch, and he's in good shape, and he sort of puts that out there to say, hey, you can be a video game player, you can also be in good shape. And so many of these stereotypes are no longer so relevant. I mean, there's a lot of gamers who are in great shape and who do have balance and who are socially adept. And so I think it's a great question. And just like anything else, it comes down to balance. There's one other thing I do want to say, though, that is very important, is about toxicity in video games. And so that's something that the industry has a long way to go towards, because still when you go online, still if you're a minority, woman, anything like that, and even if you're just not so good at the game, you can get a lot of flack, and that creates negative experiences, and it's something that they need to be held accountable for, because especially in 2020, it's totally unacceptable.
Yeah, that's true. No, moderating the sort of racism and sexism and homophobic nonsense that's thrown around as just sort of talking in games is a key thing that makes some people nervous about joining in. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Noah Smith and Aaron Ashley Simon, for this amazing conversation. Go out there and buy a video game system. It's safer than being outdoors. Thank you so much. More AM Joy after the break.